Welcome to my channel Garden. Hi there. Today we're diving into part 2 of story. The villain was never sick. Let's continue. Liang Zhen read aloud slowly while Shen Wenzhou listened without interruption. At some point he noticed the room had become too quiet. He looked up and nearly stopped reading, because Shen Wenzhou was still watching them, not working or checking his phone, just watching, expression unreadable. Liang Zhen suddenly felt weirdly nervous. What? Shen Wenzhou blinked once, as if returning from thought. Nothing. That was definitely not nothing. But before Liang Zhen could ask further, a servant approached nervously. Young master, what is it? The old madam called. Mother-in-law. The servant hesitated strangely before continuing. She says she landed this morning. Silence fell over the room. For the first time since meeting him, Shen Wenzhou actually looked mildly surprised. Already? She's on the way home. The servants collectively looked terrified. Liang Zhen blinked, turning to everyone slowly. Wait, why did everyone suddenly look like disaster was approaching? Then another servant rushed in. Young master, Master Shen has also returned. Both parents. At once. The room instantly descended into chaos. Servants hurried through the mansion at twice their previous speed. Footsteps echoed from every direction. Someone nearly dropped an entire vase of flowers. Another servant almost collided with a doorway while carrying tea. Meanwhile, Shen Wenzhou quietly buried his face against Liang Zhen's arm. Liang Zhen looked down, then looked back at the panicking servants. Liang Zhen patted his head instinctively. Are your grandparents scary? Shen Wenzhou considered the question carefully. Grandmother bites people. Liang Zhen choked. What? Before clarification could happen, the mansion doors opened. Elegant heels clicked sharply against marble flooring. Click, click, click. Then a woman's voice rang through the entrance hall. Where's my son? Liang Zhen looked up instinctively and froze. A stunning woman in a dark emerald dress strode inside like she owned the world itself. Sharp eyes and perfect posture. Luxury dripping from every detail. Behind her followed an older man carrying 2 suitcases while looking deeply exhausted with life. The woman removed her sunglasses and immediately spotted Shen Wenzhou. My poor sick child. Liang Zhen almost got emotional for a second. A worried mother. Then she grabbed Shen Wenzhou's face in both hands, tilted it left and right, and declared furiously, You lost weight. She whirled toward the servants. Are you all blind? The servants looked ready to resign. Shen Wenzhou looked completely unbothered. Mother. Then her gaze shifted directly onto Liang Zhen. Silence. The entire room held its breath. Guilon slowly released her son, then walked toward Liang Zhen elegantly unhurried. Closer, closer. Liang Zhen sat frozen beside Shen Wenzhou. She stopped right in front of him, studied him from head to toe, then suddenly grabbed his hands dramatically. Oh! Liang Zhen blinked. Pardon. Guilon's eyes sparkled. He's pretty. The room fell silent, utterly silent. Guilon continued holding Liang Zhen's hands while examining him like an expensive artwork she was considering stealing. Very pretty, she corrected thoughtfully. Liang Zhen's soul left his body. Nearby, Shen Wenzhou quietly handed a suitcase to a servant and muttered, There she goes. Guilon ignored him completely. Instead, she lifted Liang Zhen's chin slightly. Tired eyes, thin wrists, polite posture. Her expression darkened instantly. The Liang family neglected you. Liang Zhen nearly coughed blood. How did she conclude that in 5 seconds? Meanwhile, the servants looked unsurprised. Apparently, this woman simply operated on terrifying instinct. Guilon suddenly turned toward Shen Wenzhou. You saw this and still let him marry into the family looking like this? Shen Wenzhou replied calmly, I married him yesterday. And already he's underfed. That seems statistically unlikely. Don't argue with your mother. Shen Wenzhou walked over at last, finally looking toward Liang Zhen properly. Unlike his wife's dramatic intensity, Shen Wenzhou's gaze was steady, quietly assessing. dangerously intelligent. Liang Zhen immediately sat straighter. The older man observed him for a long moment. Then his eyes shifted toward Shen, Yu leaning against Liang Zhen's side. A small pause followed. Interesting. Then Shen Wenzhou said simply, "You stayed beside the child willingly. Not a question." "Yes." Another long look. Then, "You can stay." Liang Zhen blinked. Stay? Was he being evaluated for adoption into the villain family right now? Guilon immediately looked offended. "What do you mean he can stay?" "Of course he can stay. He's married already." Shen Wenzhou looked tired. "You know what I meant." "I do not." "You absolutely do." Liang Zhen watched this exchange with growing confusion. Wait, why did this feel less like meeting in-laws and more like surviving an entrance interview into a mafia organization? Meanwhile, Shen Yu quietly tugged Liang Zhen's sleeve. "Hungry." The room froze again. A servant dropped a tray somewhere in the distance. Guilon stared. He asked for food himself? Another servant looked close to tears. Shen Wenzhou slowly turned toward his grandson. "You're comfortable." Shen Yu nodded once, then pointed at Liang Zhen. "He reads." Like that explained everything. Apparently it did. Because both grandparents immediately looked toward Liang Zhen again with terrifying intensity. "Liang Zhen, why do I feel like I unlocked hidden affection routes accidentally?" Guilon recovered first. "Kitchen." The staff jumped. "Yes, madam. My grandson wants food. Prepare something immediately. And nutritious things for Zhen too." "For me?" She looked scandalized. "Your family now." The words came naturally, casually, without hesitation, and unexpectedly, Liang Zhen's chest tightened. Because nobody had ever said that to him so easily before. Not even in his first life. Guilon suddenly narrowed her eyes. "Why do you look like you're about to cry?" "I'm not." She looked unconvinced, then abruptly hooked her arm through Liang Zhen's. "Come with me." "Where?" "Shopping." Everyone froze, including Shen Wenzhou. "Mother." "What?" "He arrived yesterday." "Yes, which means his wardrobe is tragic." "It is not tragic," Liang Zhen protested weakly. Guilon looked at his sleeves. "It's tragic. It's normal. It's criminal." Shen Wenzhou sighed deeply and sat down like a man accepting fate. Meanwhile, Guilon was already dragging Liang Zhen toward the stairs. "You need proper clothes, jewelry, better skincare, and perhaps a prettier coat." Liang Zhen looked helplessly toward Shen Wenzhou for support. Big mistake. Because Shen Wenzhou was watching him quietly again. That unreadable look in his eyes returning. Then, to Liang Zhen's horror, he said calmly, "The black card is in the second drawer." "Traitor." Guilon looked delighted instantly. "Wonderful." Liang Zhen stared at him in disbelief. "You're actually letting her do this?" Shen Wenzhou leaned back slightly, a faint smile appearing again. "Dangerous but subtle. Beautiful enough to cause problems." "You're my spouse," he said evenly. "It would be embarrassing if you dressed too modestly." Liang Zhen nearly died on the spot. Meanwhile, beside them, Shen Yu quietly tugged Liang Zhen's sleeve again. Liang Zhen looked down. The child held up the storybook. "Come back." A small careful voice, like he wasn't sure he was allowed to ask. Liang Zhen softened instantly. "I'll come back." Shen Yu stared at him silently for another second, then slowly nodded. Only after getting an answer did he let go. Across the room, Shen Wenzhou watched the interaction silently. His gaze lingered for a moment longer than necessary. Then he looked away. 3 hours later, Liang Zhen understood two things. First, Guilon treated shopping like military warfare. Second, rich people were terrifying. "I don't need 12 coats." Liang Zhen tried protesting weakly. "You absolutely do. I only have one body. That's exactly why we must dress it properly." Liang Zhen stood in the middle of an absurdly luxurious boutique while assistants fluttered around him carrying clothing like he was some rare endangered species. Meanwhile, Guilon sat elegantly on a velvet chair issuing command. "This one." "No." "Yes." "Burn that design." The poor sales associate nearly collapsed. Liang Zhen looked helplessly at the mirror. He barely recognized himself anymore. The original Liang Zhen always dressed plainly because the Liang family hated spending money on him. Now he wore a fitted black coat over cream-colored knitwear, dark trousers, and silver accessories subtle enough to look expensive without screaming wealth. He looked good, dangerously good. Guilon narrowed her eyes critically. Liang Zhen braced himself. Then she nodded. Acceptable. The sales assistants looked relieved enough to cry. Shen Wenzhou sat nearby reading financial reports the entire time like a man spiritually detached from the chaos. At one point Liang Zhen whispered carefully, "Does mother always shop like this?" Shen Wenzhou didn't even look up. This is her restrained mode. Liang Zhen almost passed away. Then suddenly Guilon's phone rang. She glanced at the screen. Oh! A smile slowly spread across her face. The kind of smile that definitely led to drama. What happened? Shen Wenzhou asked. Guilon looked delighted. The Liang family is panicking. Liang Zhen blinked. What? She waved the phone lazily. The West District cancellation spread already. Oh, right. Shen Wenzhou nuked their business relationship this morning. Liang Zhen suddenly felt slightly guilty. Only slightly. Guilon continued cheerfully. Apparently your father is furious. There went the guilt. Shen Wenzhou finally looked up. They contacted you? No. Guilon smiled wider. They contacted everyone else. Social circles and business rumors. Liang Zhen immediately understood. The Liang family was probably scrambling to contain damage. Because when the Shen family publicly distanced themselves from someone, others noticed. Guilon tilted her head. Your father called you yet? Liang Zhen glanced at his phone. 32 missed calls. He stared at the screen. The screen stared back. Guilon's expression chilled instantly. Ah, not good. Did he contact you often before marriage? She asked softly. Mostly when he needed something. Silence. Shen Wenzhou closed his financial report. That tiny motion somehow felt ominous. Guilon's eyes became colder and colder. Then suddenly she smiled again, which was somehow worse. My dear, she said warmly, would you like mother to ruin them? Liang Zhen nearly tripped over his own feet. What? He blurted out. I'm free this week, Guilon said pleasantly. She means it, Shen Wenzhou added with infuriating calm. That is not reassuring. Guilon looked genuinely disappointed. Fine, she said with a sigh. We'll be civilized. For now, Shen Wenzhou added. Liang Zhen suddenly understood exactly where Shen Wenzhou inherited his terrifying personality from. This family was unbelievable. Then another assistant approached nervously holding a dark red scarf. Madam, what about this one? Guilon turned to Liang Zhen, her eyes narrowing thoughtfully. Try it. 5 minutes later, Liang Zhen found himself standing in front of the mirror once again. The deep wine-red scarf draped loosely around his neck, its rich color contrasting beautifully with his fair skin and dark hair. The boutique fell strangely silent. Liang Zhen frowned. Why was everyone so quiet? One assistant covered her mouth. Oh my God! Another clutched her chest as if she were about to faint. Liang Zhen? What was that reaction supposed to mean? Guilon looked thoroughly triumphant. I knew it. Then, click. Everyone turned toward the sound. Shen Wenzhou stood at the entrance of the boutique, still dressed in his formal black attire. One hand held a phone. His expression was as unreadable as ever. Apparently he had just taken a photo. Liang Zhen stared at him in disbelief. Did you just photograph me? Shen Wenzhou calmly lowered his phone and slipped it into his pocket. No. A brief pause followed. Perhaps. Liang Zhen was speechless. Liar. A complete and utter liar. Guilon burst into delighted laughter. Oh, this is wonderful. Shen Wenzhou looked vaguely traumatized. Meanwhile, Liang Zhen could feel his ears growing warmer by the second. Why was this family like this? Shen Wenzhou walked over at an unhurried pace. His gaze swept over Liang Zhen once. Only once. Yet it lingered just long enough to make Liang Zhen suddenly, painfully aware of the scarf around his neck. Then Shen Wenzhou spoke. "Buy that one." The sales assistants looked seconds away from ascending to a higher plane of existence. Guilon smirked. "Our son has taste." Shen Wenzhou ignored her completely. Instead, he reached forward and adjusted the scarf around Liang Zhen's neck. His movements were calm and precise, as though this were the most natural thing in the world. When his fingers brushed against Liang Zhen's skin, the touch was warm and surprisingly gentle. It lasted only an instant. Even so, the simple gesture felt far too intimate. Liang Zhen froze where he stood. The boutique, the sales assistants, Guilon's delighted expression. Everything faded into the background. All he could focus on was the hand that had just withdrawn from his neck, and the fact that his ears were definitely burning now. Then Shen Wenzhou leaned in slightly, close enough that no one else could hear. "Your father arrived at the mansion earlier." Liang Zhen's heart skipped a beat. "What?" "He wants to take you home." The lingering warmth from moments ago vanished instantly. When Liang Zhen looked up, the gentleness in Shen Wenzhou's eyes was gone. His expression had turned cold. "But I refused." Liang Zhen stared at him. For a moment, everything else faded away. "You refused." Shen Wenzhou answered as if it were nothing worth mentioning. Something tightened in Liang Zhen's chest. They had known each other for only 2 days. Their marriage was still new enough to feel unreal. Yet when his father had demanded that he return home, Shen Wenzhou hadn't hesitated. He had simply said no. The certainty of it caught Liang Zhen off guard. He wasn't used to having someone stand beside him so naturally. Guilon, meanwhile, immediately sensed trouble. Her eyes narrowed. What exactly did Liang Guowei say? Shen Wenzhou glanced at his mother. He said his son should remember where home is. The temperature around Guilon seemed to drop several degrees. Oh, it was a single syllable. Somehow it sounded murderous. Across from her, Shen Rongda quietly folded his newspaper. Liang Zhen had known him for only 2 days, but even he recognized that as an ominous sign. Then Shen Wenzhou continued in the same calm tone. He also implied that our family was unsuitable for Zhen. Silence fell over the boutique. One sales assistant nearly dropped an entire tray of jewelry. Guilon smiled. It was a beautiful smile. Liang Zhen instantly understood why people feared wealthy women. "That man," she said softly, "has courage." "No," Shen Rongda corrected. "He has stupidity." The silence deepened. Liang Zhen looked from Guilon to Shen Rongda, then to Shen Wenzhou, who appeared completely unsurprised by either reaction. This family discussed potential destruction the same way ordinary people discuss tomorrow's weather. Shen Wenzhou looked at him. "Did you want to go?" The question caught Liang Zhen off guard. Shen Wenzhou was genuinely asking for his opinion. He wasn't ordering him around or making the decision on his behalf. He was simply waiting for an answer. "No." The response escaped before Liang Zhen could think about it. The speed of his answer surprised even him. For a brief moment, Shen Wenzhou's gaze softened, though the change was so slight that Liang Zhen might have imagined it. Then his phone vibrated. Liang Zhen looked down and immediately felt a headache coming on. "Father calling." The 2 words on the screen seemed strangely aggressive. Guilon noticed them at once. "Answer." Liang Zhen nearly dropped the phone. "Mother." I want to hear his tone. That statement was far more frightening than it should have been. Before Liang Zhen could object, Shen Wenzhou held out a hand. "Give it to me." Liang Zhen stared. "You're going to answer?" Shen Wenzhou accepted the phone without hesitation and lifted it to his ear. The boutique fell silent. "President Liang," he greeted politely. A loud voice immediately burst through the speaker. "Where is Liang Zhen?" So much for greetings. Shen Wenzhou's expression remained unchanged. "He's occupied." "That is family business." "No." The answer came so quickly that even Liang Zhen found himself staring at Shen Wenzhou. A brief silence followed. Then Shen Wenzhou added evenly, It is Shen family business now. Liang Zhen's heartbeat stumbled. Across the room, Guilon looked immensely satisfied. The voice on the phone grew even harsher. He is still my son. For the first time, a chill entered Shen Wenzhou's gaze. Then perhaps, he said, his voice calm and measured, you should have treated him like one. Silence fell over the boutique. Liang Zhen froze. Even the sales assistants seemed afraid to breathe. Shen Wenzhou's tone had remained perfectly calm throughout the conversation. Yet every word landed with unsettling precision. On the other end of the call, Liang Guowei sputtered angrily. You contacted him 32 times today. Shen Wenzhou interrupted smoothly. An impressive level of dedication for someone who rarely called before the marriage. Liang Zhen stared at him. How did he know that? Shen Wenzhou continued as though discussing an ordinary business report. You attempted to pressure him for business favors less than 24 hours after the wedding. After being refused, you personally came to my home. He paused briefly. President Liang. His voice remained polite. That somehow made it worse. If you continue disturbing my spouse, I will be forced to suspect malicious intent. The line went silent again. This time, the silence stretched noticeably longer. Everyone in the boutique understood what Shen Wenzhou had just implied. His words had been perfectly courteous, yet the warning beneath them was unmistakable. Finally, Liang Guowei forced out, "You're overreacting." "Am I?" Shen Wenzhou's gaze shifted briefly to Liang Zhen before returning to the call. He's timid. Since when had he become timid? He doesn't know how to refuse people properly. Liang Zhen. Excuse me? Liang Zhen stared at him in disbelief. And unfortunately, Shen Wenzhou continued smoothly, I dislike watching others take advantage of what belongs to me. For a moment, the entire boutique seemed to stop functioning. Liang Zhen felt heat rush straight to his face. What exactly was that supposed to mean? Across the room, one sales assistant quietly grabbed another's sleeve for emotional support. Guilon, meanwhile, looked seconds away from applauding. Shen Rongda pinched the bridge of his nose as though this entire situation were perfectly normal. Then Shen Wenzhou ended the call himself. Without waiting for a response, the line disconnected with a soft click. Silence. Liang Guowei had just lost a battle and everyone knew it. Shen Wenzhou returned the phone to Liang Zhen. Their fingers brushed briefly as the phone changed hands. The touch was warm and steady. Liang Zhen looked up blankly. You didn't have to do that. Shen Wenzhou studied him for a moment. Did you want me to stop? The answer came immediately. No, not even a little. The realization was alarming enough that Liang Zhen forgot to speak. Unfortunately, his silence seemed to answer the question anyway, because Shen Wenzhou's gaze lingered on him for one quiet second too long. Liang Zhen wanted the floor to open up and swallow him. Then, Guilon clapped once. Excellent. Family bonding complete. Continue shopping. The atmosphere shattered instantly. Liang Zhen nearly collapsed from emotional whiplash. Meanwhile, the sales assistants had clearly entered gossip heaven. One woman was aggressively pretending not to stare at Shen Wenzhou. She was doing a terrible job. Another looked moments away from posting anonymously online. President Shen actually likes his arranged marriage spouse? Shen Rongda stood up calmly. I'm going back to the car. Coward, Guilon said without hesitation. Yes. Liang Zhen watched him go with undisguised envy. Freedom. That man had freedom. Meanwhile, he was trapped between terrifyingly affectionate rich people and a villain husband who kept saying outrageous things with a completely straight face. Then Guilon suddenly narrowed her eyes at Shen Wenzhou. Wait. Something about that single word felt dangerous. When did you become this possessive? Liang Zhen nearly choked. Shen Wenzhou looked entirely unbothered. You're imagining things. Oh. Guilon crossed her arms elegantly. Then why did you leave work early to come here? Silence. It was an excellent question. Even Liang Zhen turned to look at Shen Wenzhou curiously. Shen Wenzhou adjusted his cuff. I was nearby. Guilon sighed. A liar since childhood. Liang Zhen tried very hard not to laugh. Unfortunately, Shen Wenzhou noticed. Their eyes met briefly. To Liang Zhen's horror, the corner of Shen Wenzhou's mouth lifted slightly. The smile was tiny, barely visible but undeniably real. One nearby sales assistant immediately grabbed another's arm for emotional support. Then a child's voice echoed from the boutique entrance. "Papa!" Liang Zhen turned immediately. Shen Yu stood near the doorway holding a small plush rabbit. The bodyguard beside him looked exhausted. The moment Shen Yu spotted Liang Zhen, he walked over without hesitation. Straight past Shen Wenzhou. Straight toward Liang Zhen. Liang Zhen blinked in surprise. "Weren't you at home?" Before Shen Yu could answer, Shen Wenzhou spoke from behind him. "He wanted to come." Shen Yu nodded seriously. Liang Zhen looked between father and son. "Why?" Shen Yu considered the question carefully. Then he pointed at Liang Zhen. "See you." The boutique went suspiciously quiet. Guilon covered her mouth. "Oh, this family is finished." Then he held up the rabbit. "It looks like you." Liang Zhen stared at the plush toy. It was white, sleepy-looking, and wearing a tiny red scarf. Liang Zhen felt his face heat instantly. "How does that look like me?" Shen Yu pointed at the scarf. "That." Then he pointed at the rabbit's eyes. "And that." Liang Zhen frowned. "What's wrong with my eyes?" "Sad." A direct critical hit. Shen Wenzhou actually laughed. Not a polite smile. Not a faint smirk. A real laugh. Low and brief, but enough to make several employees forget how to function. Liang Zhen stared at him in disbelief. "You're laughing at me?" "You do resemble it slightly." Absolute betrayal. Shen Yu nodded in agreement. Liang Zhen looked at the child in horror. "You too." Shen Yu ignored his distress and pressed the rabbit into his hands. "For you." And just like that, Liang Zhen suffered another devastating defeat. "Thank you." Shen Yu nodded as if this outcome had been inevitable. Liang Zhen suddenly suspected he was losing every battle in this household. The child visibly relaxed, as though giving gifts made him nervous. Oh no, this child was far too precious. Shen Wenzhou watched the interaction quietly. Then his phone vibrated. The moment he glanced at the screen, something in his expression changed. The faint warmth vanished, replaced by the familiar cold sharpness that made boardrooms tremble and executives lose sleep. Liang Zhen noticed immediately. What happened? Shen Wenzhou didn't answer at once. Instead, he typed a quick reply with one hand. A second message arrived. Then a third. With each notification, the look in his eyes grew darker. Guilon's smile faded. "Problem?" Shen Wenzhou finally looked up. Someone touched the warehouse accounts. The atmosphere changed instantly. The easy warmth that had filled the boutique moments ago disappeared without a trace. As if sensing trouble from several kilometers away, Shen Rongda reappeared out of nowhere. Internal or external? Internal. Shen Wenzhou's gaze turned cold. Very internal. Guilon sighed softly. "Well, someone's dying." "Mother," Liang Zhen said weakly. "What? Financially counts too." That was not remotely reassuring. Shen Wenzhou slipped his phone back into his pocket before unexpectedly turning his gaze toward Liang Zhen. "You should return home first." The words were calm and perfectly reasonable. Yet Liang Zhen sensed something beneath them. It felt as though Shen Wenzhou was instinctively drawing a line between him and whatever trouble was waiting ahead, deliberately keeping him away from danger. For some reason, Liang Zhen didn't like that. "Will you be late?" The question escaped before he could stop it. Shen Wenzhou paused briefly before answering. "Yes." A strange feeling settled in Liang Zhen's chest. It almost felt like disappointment, which was ridiculous. They had known each other for 2 days. 2 days. There was absolutely no reason for him to care when Shen Wenzhou came home. Before he could untangle that thought, Shen Yu quietly reached out and tugged on Shen Wenzhou's sleeve. "Don't kill people." Silence. Liang Zhen slowly turned toward Shen Yu. "What?" Shen Yu looked completely serious. "Last time Papa smiled like this, Uncle Zhao disappeared." The silence somehow became even worse. A shopping bag hit the floor somewhere behind them. Nobody turned around. Liang Zhen stared at Shen Yu, then at Shen Wenzhou, then back at Shen Yu. What do you mean disappeared? Shen Yu considered the question carefully. He cried first. Liang Zhen had absolutely no idea what that was supposed to mean. The atmosphere inside the boutique became deeply cursed. Several employees suddenly looked afraid to breathe too loudly. Guilon, meanwhile, sighed like a mother hearing about her child's latest incident at school. Darling, she said to Shen Wenzhou, I told you not to solve problems so obviously in front of the child. Liang Zhen nearly ascended on the spot. Mother? What? That sounds incredibly illegal. It wasn't illegal, Shen Wenzhou said calmly. A brief pause followed. Technically, that was somehow much worse. Shen Wenzhou looked completely unbothered by the conversation. Instead, he crouched slightly in front of Shen Yu. I didn't kill Uncle Zhao. Shen Yu considered this. But he vanished. He moved overseas, crying. He was emotional. Liang Zhen had no idea how to respond to that exchange. At this point, he was fairly certain the entire Shen family was operating under rules known only to themselves. Then Shen Wenzhou rested a hand lightly on Shen Yu's head. I won't scare your brother. The words were quiet and unexpectedly gentle. For some reason, they affected Liang Zhen far more than the earlier conversation. Brother. It was such a simple form of address, yet it placed him somewhere different. Not a caretaker, not an outsider, someone who belonged. Shen Yu seemed satisfied by the answer. Okay. Apparently satisfied, Shen Yu turned back toward Liang Zhen and grabbed his hand naturally, as though this had already become a habit. Liang Zhen looked down blankly at their joined hands before slowly raising his head, only to realize Shen Wenzhou was watching him again. The man's gaze was quiet and focused, carrying an attentiveness that made Liang Zhen increasingly uncomfortable. His heartbeat immediately became unreliable. Thankfully, Guilon rescued him by dramatically standing up. Well, since my son must go terrify accountants, shopping is over. Several employees looked relieved beyond words. Shen Wenzhou rose smoothly to his feet. Most of the warmth around him had disappeared by now. The cold, intimidating businessman from earlier was gradually returning, and even his posture seemed subtly different, sharper, more distant, and somehow more dangerous. Liang Zhen suddenly remembered something important. Right? This man was a villain, an actual villain, not just an unfairly attractive fake patient who had spent the entire afternoon destroying his emotional stability. Then Shen Wenzhou looked toward him. Take Shen Yu home first. Okay. A brief pause followed. You'll eat dinner without me. Something about the wording sounded strangely familiar, like someone informing their family that work would keep them late. Liang Zhen's ears immediately grew warm again. Why did everything this man said sound dangerous? Before he could think about it further, Shen Wenzhou stepped closer. Close enough that only Liang Zhen could hear him. If anyone contacts you today, his eyes cooled slightly. Tell me first. The possessiveness in that simple sentence was subtle, but unmistakable. Liang Zhen swallowed. All right. For a brief moment, Shen Wenzhou's gaze softened again. Then his phone vibrated. The softness vanished instantly. Without another word, he turned away and pulled on a pair of black gloves handed to him by one of the bodyguards. Liang Zhen stared. Black gloves. Why did he need black gloves for accounting problems? That seemed deeply concerning. He watched Shen Wenzhou leave the boutique surrounded by assistants and security. His tall figure disappeared beyond the glass doors just as rain began falling outside again. And somehow the entire place felt a little emptier after he left. You're staring. Guilon's voice sounded beside him. Liang Zhen nearly jumped. I am not. You absolutely are. Shen Yu nodded in agreement. Traitors. Guilon linked arms with him again cheerfully. Don't worry. My son only looks emotionally constipated. He gets attached quickly. Liang Zhen almost inhaled wrong. Attached? Yes. No, he doesn't. Guilon looked at him knowingly. That single syllable felt deeply threatening. Then Shen Wenzhou quietly added, He came personally. Liang Zhen blinked. What? For you? Shen Wenzhou rarely wasted words, which somehow made that statement much worse. He hates shopping malls. The older man continued calmly. The last time he entered one willingly was 6 years ago. Why? Someone annoyed him. Liang Zhen stared. That explains nothing. It explained enough. No, it absolutely did not. Meanwhile, Shen Yu quietly climbed into Liang Zhen's lap while hugging the rabbit plush. The child settled there comfortably, completely trusting him, as though he had already decided that Liang Zhen belonged here. Guilon watched the scene for a moment before a faint smile appeared on her face. For once, it wasn't teasing or amused. Instead, there was something unexpectedly gentle in her expression. How strange, she murmured. Liang Zhen looked at her in confusion. What is? She glanced toward the rain outside the boutique windows. For the first time in years, she said softly, that house finally feels alive again. The drive back to the Shen estate was quiet. Rain tapped softly against the windows while city lights blurred outside. Shen Yu had fallen asleep halfway home, curled against Liang Zhen's side with the rabbit plush still clutched in his arms. Liang Zhen carefully adjusted the blanket over him and couldn't stop the faint smile that appeared on his face. Across from them, Guilon watched silently. Then she suddenly said, "You're good for him." Liang Zhen looked up. For Shen Yu. For both of them. His heartbeat stumbled slightly. Before Liang Zhen could answer, Shen Wenzhou calmly added from beside her, Wenzhou's been calmer. Liang Zhen blinked. Today? No. The older man looked toward the rain beyond the window. Since you arrived. Silence filled the car. Liang Zhen didn't know what to say to that. It sounded impossible. He had only been here for 2 days. How could he possibly affect someone like Shen Wenzhou? A man who manipulated entire companies while pretending to cough delicately into handkerchiefs. Guilon seemed to read his thoughts immediately. My son is difficult, she said lightly. That's a very gentle way to describe him, Shen Wenzhou muttered. He was worse as a teenager. Mother. He threatened a school director at 16. The director deserved it. That's not the point. Liang Zhen stared blankly. Teenage Shen Wenzhou sounded horrifying. Then Guilon smiled faintly. But after Yanlin died, the atmosphere inside the car changed immediately. Su Yanlin, the original fiancée, the woman whose death had set the entire revenge plot in motion. For the first time since meeting them, both Shen parents grew noticeably quieter. He became colder, Guilon said softly. More reckless. Shen Wenzhou's expression darkened. He stopped sleeping properly and started pretending to be sick, Guilon added dryly. Liang Zhen froze. Wait, they had just admitted that openly? Guilon noticed immediately. He didn't tell you? Liang Zhen slowly turned toward her. Tell me what? Shen Wenzhou sighed the moment he understood. Oh, that's unfortunate. Liang Zhen did not like the sound of that. At all. Guilon covered her mouth elegantly. Ah! Liang Zhen narrowed his eyes. Mother. Well. She coughed lightly. Surprise. Everything suddenly clicked into place. The pulse. The strength. The walking. The terrifying aura of someone fully capable of physical violence. Liang Zhen felt emotionally betrayed. Meanwhile, Shen Wenzhou continued calmly. The poisoning years ago was real. Poisoning? He recovered, Guilon said. Mostly. Liang Zhen repeated weakly. He still has health issues, Shen Wenzhou explained. Just not terminal ones. Liang Zhen leaned back against the seat. The original novel had described Shen Wenzhou as a dying man counting down his final days. Reality, however, appeared to have ignored that entire plotline, which meant the story itself was unreliable. What else had been wrong? Then another horrifying realization struck him. Wait! Guilon blinked. What? I spent 2 entire days feeling sorry for him. The declaration hung in the air for a moment. Then Shen Wenzhou laughed. Actually laughed. Low and brief, but unmistakably real. Guilon immediately burst into dramatic laughter. Oh, this is wonderful. Liang Zhen looked betrayed. You all knew. Yes. And nobody told me? We thought he did, Guilon admitted shamelessly. I literally adjusted his blankets while mentally preparing for his tragic early death. That only made her laugh harder. Even Shen Wenzhou looked amused now. Meanwhile, Shen Yu slept peacefully through the chaos. The little traitor. Liang Zhen crossed his arms. That liar. Guilon wiped away a tear. Ah, there it is. What? The first spouse complaint. I'm serious. I know. She still looked delighted. Then, more softly, she added, You should yell at him when he comes home. Liang Zhen blinked. Can I? Please do. Shen Wenzhou nodded once. He deserves it. This family was unbelievable. End of part 2. Thank you for watching. What do you think will happen next? Part 3 coming soon.